Welcome everyone to the 12 Steps on the Path to Freedom workshop. I am Lisa, your interpreter, co-traveler, and fellow student. I am grateful that we are all here today to experience this journey together as our first passage through the 12 steps is starting to wind down. So we are setting aside, letting go of our preconceived notions, judgments, insufficient ideas in order to be present today with an open mind and an open heart, like a tabula rasa. So try to clear your mind, clear your heads, forget about whatever brought you to the room, and just let's recite the set aside prayer together, and we'll start fresh in this moment. So please, God, set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience with myself, my brokenness, my spiritual path, and especially you. The 12 steps are kind of like a recipe for a special cake, one that brings about a personality change powerful enough to allow us as addicted personalities to recover from our addictions. We have baked this delicious spiritual experience kind of cake as directed by Bill W.'s recipe, the 12 steps. Step 12 is time for the final step, and that would be the icing on the cake. The 12 steps of AA, in their simplest terms, are a solution for the disease of addiction. They are a set of universal guiding principles that merge with the traditional boundaries of religion, culture, and wisdom traditions. They outline a course of action that, when followed willingly, will remove the obsession in the mind, connect us to a higher power, and as we continue to grow, show us how to help others who still struggle. Step 12 is, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So this is our way of life that we're aiming for. We've seen this formula before, so this is just a review of our new way of life. And that statement, way of life, is a phrase that Bill uses. It's a code he created. It's his model for steps 10, 11, and 12. The first step is to clear our channel with using step 10. This can be done in the moment that it is needed, known as the spot check, or can be viewed as we look at the day that is behind us. So we go about our day and we fill the channel according to step 11 through our prayer and meditation practice when we begin our day, whatever time that is. We experience these concepts at the beginning of the workshop, and now again, we look at them as we near the end. We let the light in often through the cracks in our souls. And in our meditation practices, we get a glimmer of that small but immense light. And that same light comes through us and out to the world around us. Bill W. wrote that our troubles could, under God's grace, be converted into unimagined blessings. And this has been my experience. More often than not, my distresses have turned into my assets. A similar, more detailed concept is found in the work of Carolyn Myss, who wrote, "Wounds are the means through which we enter the hearts of other people. They are meant to teach us to become compassionate and wise." Our way of life also indicates that we are not cured, but we do have our daily reprieve. Steps 10, 11, and 12 are not just an option because they are essential to stay in the flow. In the 12 and 12, Bill says about step 11, those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support. Bill explains that just as physical life cannot be sustained without these elements, emotional and spiritual health requires the sunlight of the spirit, gained through prayer and meditation. Step 11 and 12 are like a two-sided coin. We looked at step 11 last week, and it said in the big book that step 12 improves our conscious contact, which refers to strengthening our daily interactive relationship with our higher power as understood by each individual through prayer, meditation, and actions that align with spiritual principles. While this concept is specifically defined as the goal of step 11, it is carried over into step 12 as a continuous process that maintains the spiritual awakening mentioned in the step. When we talk about spirituality as a relationship with a higher power, we can also see it as my human relationship with my life, with myself, and my relationship with others. And that step 11 is about improving our consciousness to have a connection with an energy and power grander and larger than my wee little self. In step 12, we aim or strive to aim to enlarge our spiritual lives. In Jim's story, he failed to enlarge his spiritual life on page 35, and having not done this, it is his reason for his relapse that he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. The book doesn't specifically say what this means, but as we navigate the deep dive of the big book in step 2, page 14, we discovered at the bottom of the page that Bill defined what he meant by that word in a different context, but it reveals what he meant by enlarging our spiritual life. In the Alcoholics Anonymous first edition, A Vision for You, Bill said, these men had found something brand new in life. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves over to others. So this is the turning that Bill talks about in step 3. Turning is an active, ongoing process, not a one-time passive event. It is a decision to stop trying to force life to go our way and instead to align our actions with a higher spiritual purpose. It means letting go of control over one's addiction, actions, emotions, and life, and placing them under the care of a higher power. Bill W. described his own turning point in Towns Hospital in 1934, where he hit rock bottom and realized he was hopeless within his own resources. True turning begins when a person accepts that they cannot control their addiction on their own. This turning is the decision, but it is fulfilled by strenuously working the middle steps. Taking inventory in step 4, admitting wrongs in step 5, and making amends through step 8 and 9. It is a daily, often hourly, recommitment to let go and let God, especially when facing fear or self-pity. It is, in essence, the pivot point from a life of frantic, self-centered, and self-destructive control to a life of peace, serenity, and guided action. We mature into responsible adults in regards to our own behaviors. Steps 11 and 12 are that spiritual coin that has two sides. That is the integration I am communicating. That is the integration that Bill gives us in steps 11 and 12. Each of us will be called to emphasize one or the other, but it is a coin about commitment to turn. And at this point, you can hopefully relate to the concept of being turned. In finishing each session of studying the steps, I was evolving and changing. I was enlightened and took many actions that I normally would not have taken. I worked diligently, and what I found was that I had, on some level, made a commitment to change the ways I felt, behaved, and even how I saw things. In my spiritual enlightenment, I found an immensely larger than life, beyond my explanation I could muster for my efforts, in a new way to touch joy. Bill calls this change a spiritual awakening. Willingness and prayer was key to all of this awareness for me, but without willingness and letting go of my need to be in control, it may not have ever happened. Lectio Divina, or divine reading, is an ancient monastic practice of scriptural reading, meditation, and prayer designed to foster deeper communion with God. It involves four main stages: lectio, meditatio, oratio, and contemplation, where practitioners slow down, savor a very short passage, and listen for a personal word from God. In the 12 and 12 on pages 99 to 100, Bill W. outlines a method for beginners to practice meditation, which is considered a direct application of this traditional Christian practice. Also in the 12 and 12, Bill suggests taking a specific text, he recommends the Prayer of St. Francis, and to read it slowly over and over again, very slowly. The goal is to savor every word, phrase, and idea to gain a deeper meaning, which is the essence of Lectio Divina. Bill encourages this as a way to improve our conscious contact with our higher power and move beyond simple, repetitive prayer to a deeper listening. While Lectio Divina is rooted in monastic tradition, Bill W. adapted this contemplative, text-based meditation to make it accessible to members of Alcoholics Anonymous in the 12 and 12. To practice Lectio Divina, choose a quiet, comfortable space and a specific amount of dedicated time, for example, 15, maybe 30 minutes, whatever you can handle. Use a short, actionable, and familiar passage like a parable or a psalm. Conclude by determining a concrete daily action to live out the insight received in your session. If you are a beginner, don't rush. Focus on your heart, not your intellect, and try to be patient. So I listen to my body, my emotions, as my guide to my behavior. But most of all, and this can be subtle, we listen to the inspiration, the deep part of our soul that directs our decisions, my will and my breath. The breath of God in me, vital to the life of my soul and my spirit, and then the function of the will. Bill captures it in step 11 when he says, praying for the knowledge of God's will and for the power to carry that out. That is the function of the will and the mind, to know better, of the will to do better. And you know that we have experienced this, but it's not always a harmony between the mind and the will. Now we are delivered to the door of step 12. When Bill had his spiritual awakening, he called it a spiritual experience. He confirms having had a spiritual experience as the result of these steps, although 2 years later he changed step 12 to read, having had a spiritual awakening. Bill gave an explanation in the appendix as to why he changed it from a spiritual experience to a spiritual awakening. And he tells us that they are the same in terms of their outcome, which is a change. But they're different in terms of their time frame. His experience was a mountaintop phenomenon and very measurable time-wise. It only lasted about 20 minutes. In Bill's case, we call it a mystical experience. And he said in the appendix that most of us actually have a very, very slow awakening. In fact, he quotes William James' view from varieties of spiritual awakenings of the religious type to be something like Bill's experience And he says that this is more of the educational variety, meaning it takes time to learn it. William James argued that spiritual awakenings and mystical experiences are legitimate, transformative, and valid for the individual who experiences them, regardless of their neurological origins. He proposed that the value of such experiences lie in their positive, practical, life-changing effects rather than their root causes. So we're back at the dimmer switch analogy. In contrast to the light switch analogy, it shows us the best example of how we spiritually awaken. The light switch is an instant flood of light into the dark room, whereas the dimmer switch is a slow, almost undistinguishable entrance of the light into the room. It's a flash of light, spiritual experience versus a dimmer switch event, which can feel like a slow grind in the way that it happens for most of us. My light's going nuts. There we go. It's a flash of light, spiritual experience versus a dimmer switch event, which can feel like a slow grind in the way that it happens for most of us. This is an event that can happen in months or even years, with us consistently applying what we have learned in the 12 steps in relation to our practice of step 11. The point is that each of them is not about a time frame or the feeling of awareness, but the change that occurs. So when we look at our behaviors, once our thinking has changed radically, we aren't perceiving it until eventually we are confronted with the dependency on external circumstances, people, or prestige for happiness. It leads to emotional instability, depression, and destructive patterns. Bill's experiences show us that true self-knowledge requires recognizing how one's own demanding, perfectionistic, and self-behaviors drive ours and others' dysfunction. Bill W. emphasized that our behaviors and emotional reactions are direct reflections of our inner states, which serve as our crucial indicators for self-examination and growth. He believed that analyzing our disturbances, reactions, and interactions helps reveal underlying defects, fostering emotional sobriety. Bill taught that we cannot think our way into right action, but we must act our way into right thinking. How your feet move is how you are behaving. And how are your relationships with your family and friends or in the workplace? How have you been behaving? Bill says it is done to us, not by us, but also not without us. Because we are in co-creation, we have free will to choose to follow the guidance of a higher power or not. When Bill W. said that recovery is done to us, not by us, he was emphasizing that lasting sobriety and profound personality changes are gifts of grace, the result of a higher power, rather than products of sheer willpower, intellectual effort, or self-sufficiency. My experience has been that I have seen my thinking and feelings change so much, and that tells me how much improvements I have made in my life. Some milestones of change are very visible to me, and my understanding is that something is in this universe, what I believe is the creator, and that was the catalyst. And I've done a lot of work in my life from a very young age. I entered the program of the 12 steps at the age of 12. And from there, it has been an upward climb involving many different modalities of healing and change. All of my searching led up to that one night in the parking lot of the hospital that my loved one was in, healing from the destruction of alcoholism. It is a moment in time where I can step back and see it in a surreal way, as though time had stood still, and then an energy beyond me reached down and grabbed me to keep me supported. From there, the spiritual milestones came, but they were not anywhere close to the caliber of that dark night of my soul. I knew what it was in that parking lot because I had searched so diligently for my sanity through something beyond myself that I could connect with it. I was patiently seeking for this magical moment for nearly my entire life. There were many other types of milestones before this event and more after that I could make a hefty list of them all. Even before I finally and completely saw my creator as everything, it was guiding my life. I just couldn't see what was right in front of my face. It was not a matter of it not being there, but a matter of not allowing it to be everything. Although I always had enough sense of there being something beyond myself from a very, very young age, defining it and allowing it were the final steps to my freedom. The 12 and 12 tells us to carry the message, my experience, strength, and hope, to others. Bill W.'s message on carrying the message is that it is the core purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous and vital for another member's own sobriety. He emphasized that by saying, we keep what we have by giving it away, making 12th step work a life or death act of responsibility that prevents relapse with a focus on sharing our experience, strength, and hope. This is an excerpt from a letter which Bill Wilson wrote in 1959 titled Citizens Again. Bill said, I just know that you are expected at some point to do more than carry the message of AA to other alcoholics. In AA, we aim not only for sobriety, we try again to become citizens of the world that we rejected and of the world that once rejected us. This is the ultimate demonstration toward which 12th step work is the first, but not the final step. So 12th, the 12th step says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message. Well, what message is Bill referring to? Well, he's referring to the idea that we can have a spiritual awakening if we apply and finish all of these steps. Spiritual awakening is the message, not a promise of sobriety, as too many people in the 12-step programs believe. On page 89, Bill says, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from addiction as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. So when Bill says that we are placed in a position of neutrality, it means that we are delivered to a position of grace with regards to our addiction, but we are not cured, not from our addiction, nor from our unmanageability. The spiritual malady and the bedevilments and the improper use of our will without realizing it because we are failing to understand the effects of these. Bill says when all else fails, work with another, help them navigate the 12 steps and the path to freedom from their addiction and then freedom from their unmanageability. We get to self-regulate, we are empowered, our will is connected to the source in a very special way where we co-create a manageable life. And there may be some hiccups, and we use our 12-step 10 course correction, and those hiccups get fewer and far in between as our emotional and spiritual sobriety flourishes. We learned early on about the set-aside attitude that leads into the set-aside intention with words to adjust to fit the needs of our individual lives. We set aside to allow for an open mind and an open heart because we are powerless. The set-aside prayer allows for a new experience, free from old, dysfunctional behaviors and outlooks. It helps us acknowledge that we do not have all the answers and to facilitate a better spiritual connection. This prayer helps us in letting go of our need for control and preconceived notions. It is designed to help with our recovery process, especially when addressing addictions. Bill described Step 12 service as the essential joy of living and the vital, practical application of all preceding steps, transforming recovery into a lifelong, active endeavor. In the 12 and 12, Bill emphasizes that service, carrying a message, is the key to maintaining sobriety, providing prodigies of service that lead to deep fulfillment and spiritual growth. Service is not just a duty, it is the action that prevents a relapse. It involves carrying the message to other addicts, which includes sponsorship, sharing experiences, and taking on group roles. Service transforms life from mere abstinence to a profoundly happy and purposeful existence, curing the childish and grandiose attitudes of the past. It requires working with others without expecting rewards, fostering humility and love. Service is a present tense, daily commitment acting as a design for life rather than a past achievement. Ultimately, Bill viewed Step 12 as the spiritual awakening that is maintained through continuous active service to others. As human beings maneuvering the spiritual path of recovery, we need community to support the efforts we make and to support others in theirs. Sometimes we listen to others about their drama and their stories because it is important for people to be heard. In our working with other people, it is important to get these principles into the conclusion of the conversation, to ask, what is the principle that may be involved? Once they have decided the principle, we can have a conversation about it. It's important for them to make a personal decision concerning each of their values. If you notice at the top, there are core values to guide our behaviors. So then if we are discussing these, we may use these to suggest they choose to take the high road. We can make this high road decision based on the specific principle involved and be generous with my commitment to not try and control or to do the bare minimum needed. On this new pathway, I need to be all in and completely committed. Having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to others, was to establish that helping other alcoholics is essential for long-term sobriety and spiritual growth. It emphasizes that saving oneself requires active service, making the message about sharing experience and hope rather than just promoting a program. This 12th and last step is divided into 3 very separate and distinct parts. First, it's an assumption that as a result of taking steps 1 through 11, we've actually had a spiritual awakening. Bill W. describes for us his definition of the spiritual awakening or experience on page 567, where he states that a spiritual experience is a personality change sufficient to recover from addiction. So once we have taken the first 11 steps, it is widely accepted and believed that the addict undergoes the kind of transformation needed to be able to actually be a different person. A spiritual awakening is equivalent to a psychic change that, among other things, removes our obsessions to use. It is that intense change that becomes the foundation of the second part of Step 12. Going out and giving away what has been so freely given to us is our last and final written direction. It's no mistake that giving away the message that one can become recovered, but not cured, from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body is the ultimate paradox in our program of recovery. It is in giving that we receive. Working with others has been the foundation so many recovering addicts have found that will not only carry them through the hard times in their own recovery, but will strengthen and inspire their willingness to continue to walk with purpose on the path to freedom. The 12-step experience has proven that nothing will ensure immunity from drinking or using as much as intensive work, not just work, but intensive work with other addicts. It works when other options fail. We can help when no one else can. It was the basis of Bill's conversation with Dr. Silkworth shortly after his white light experience. One of Bill's first thoughts sitting on that bed was that other people suffering from this disease could benefit from an understanding of what a spiritual awakening can look like for them too. So it was that God led Bill to Dr. Bob, and what was to be a 15-minute first meeting turned into over 5 hours of talking. I get to practice these principles in all my affairs when I realize that my experience can help you with your experience. It can help me in ways that nothing else can. Practicing each of our spiritual principles is truly grounded in teaching another addict how to implement the 12 steps. This will not only provide us with self-centered addicts with a sense of joy in giving, but will help us to continue to uncover the defects in our own character that continue to cause starts and stops along our journey. Remember, we recover by the steps we take, not by the meetings we make. And that is the end of the presentation. So maybe if people want to share a little bit about service, we can have a conversation about that, because this is the 12th step is pretty much about service. And I think it's important to have a discussion because a lot of people think that service means, showing up at the local blood bank or going to a hospital and offering to volunteer. But service can be as simple as holding the door for somebody behind you, returning your shopping carriage back to the front of the store. Um, there's so many ways. Sponsorship is service. Speaking to a fellow from a meeting that you attend is service. There's so many ways to do service. And for me, I have quite a few ways that I do service. I do service with a church. I do service, obviously, when I do workshops, stuff like this. I do other groups that I run. So I like to keep my service agenda pretty full because I know that when my agenda to help, instead of using the word service, my agenda to help is full, my joy is also full. It's pretty amazing. And I'm pretty sure you can all relate to that type of help that you give somebody where you just walk away and you feel like, I did something nice. I feel really good inside. I feel like I just want to soar with this simple little assistance that I did with somebody. And it's amazing how we can even see that as maybe a simple service, but to the person that we've helped, it can mean the world. So a small step for us can be a huge leap for somebody else, which is why the service is so important. But the real service that I like to pass along, and I do this with non-program people also, is to introduce them to the power of a higher power and how much that can affect someone's life. Because there's people in my life that don't need program, but they do need a higher power. So I do like to share that aspect of the 12-step program, which not only by my definition, but by many people's definition, is a spiritual program to get to a place of spiritual enlightenment. So Rochelle, I see you're unmuted. Are you going to share your experience?
Yeah.
Yay.
Something somebody in program taught me a while back that I thought was ridiculous when she did it. I thought, oh, it's so uncomfortable and whatever. And I now do it and I feel really good in the person receiving it. And it is wherever I am, if I see someone that's serving me, has a name tag, I call them by name. Now, she does a whole big deal where she'll say, "Thank you so much, John, for coming to work today." I don't do all that. That didn't feel comfortable. But just it's amazing, even in like fast food, um, taking the stuff from the person and saying, "Thank you, Mary," and because I don't think most people do that. Most people
Hmm.
don't recognize the person has a name. And at my employer, they actually, I remember this, they sent the guy who was in charge of physical plant, like the gardens and whatever, sent out a note to everybody saying, these people are work here, but they're actually human beings, and almost nobody recognizes them and says anything to them. So, except at Christmas where we do a collection, but, you know, that kind of thing. And then I'll just share one other that happened last night. I go to a meeting on Monday afternoons that's called All in On, and most of the people are from A. There's a couple of us from OA. There's a couple from Coda. And we've been together. We started during COVID, and a couple of us are in Oregon. Most of us are in California. I'm in Washington right now. But there's one woman who's on dialysis and in a wheelchair. And so she texted last night to all of us and said, it was pretty late, and she said, "Is anybody still awake?" Well, I'm always awake because I don't go to bed till like 1 in the morning and it's California. So I said, "I'm here." And she said, "I'm going to call you." And it turned out they had had a car accident. She was okay. Her husband was okay. The car was totaled. But she said, "I just needed to talk to somebody." And she talked for a while and she was okay and it hadn't affected her dialysis site or whatever. And I offered her one little bit of codependent advice and said, you really should wear a medical bracelet that says, "Don't take blood pressure," or "Don't take blood from this arm," because that's where she has her. And she said, "No, that's a really good idea." But I was able to be there. It didn't cost me anything. And I felt really good afterwards. And she kept saying to me, "I'm so grateful." And I said, "You can always count on me late at night because I don't sleep well." So sometimes it can be just like that, just being in
Hmm.
at the other end of a phone for somebody who needs it. And that's it for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in listening. Just to hear somebody say what they need to say. We don't have to fix it. We really don't even have to respond much. But to be able to listen, especially in this day and age where people are not listening to each other, not even within their own homes. We were sitting at the dinner table tonight. It was my husband, myself, and my mother-in-law who's staying with us. And he got a text message, and I said, "Put your phone down. What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I got to see what." I said, "Not while we're having dinner." And his mother looked at me like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe she said that." And I was like, "No, we spend a lot of time during the day off on our phones, electronics, working, whatever. Here we are sitting at a table together. Let's just talk to each other." What a concept. But that's the society that we've become. People don't even know how to actively listen anymore because they don't have to. And it's really sad for everybody because not only do we need to tell somebody something, but we need to hear somebody's something. That's how we get better. We have to have that release. So, that's a tremendous service story, what Rochelle just told. That hits it on the head of the nail. It can be that type of instance. And the joy that Rochelle experienced, not in a boastful way or anything else, but just that feeling of joy that we get when we use our humanity to reach out to another human being and say, hey, I needed you. You were there. I might not even know you, but you were willing to take time out, she thought, from your sleeping habits, which not for you, but that meant a lot to her. You in that moment were exactly what she needed. That's quite a service. So, it doesn't have to be drudgery and it doesn't have to be something you don't enjoy doing, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. And when you do it, you're not going to be happy. It's going to defeat the purpose. So there's many, many places you can find ways to do some service. And like I said, it doesn't have to be within the 12 steps. It can be any kind of service whatsoever. You can do volunteer work. You can um, help a neighbor out. We just went through this blizzard, and today we were finally able to get out of our houses. We had to dig out, and you could see, the snow blowing everywhere all over the neighborhoods of people trying to help each other to dig out, to get out of their houses in case something happened. And I actually went out and stood in my driveway just to watch all the different people helping each other. It was really amazing. It's one of the beautiful things about a blizzard is how people come together and they just help each other. It's really amazing. Go ahead, Linda.
I just want to piggyback off of Rochelle, just a small thing. I've heard that before, saying thank you or carrying your
Hmm.
cart back. I don't know what I was listening to. So I kind of started doing that, especially the grocery store helpers who really kind of don't look at you. And so when I do say thank you, they kind of look up like, did she just say thank you to me? And
Yeah.
even the other day, I was looking for something and I looked at the lady, I said, thank you. Can you help me with this? And she looked at me like, wow. And so she did do something extra. And then I ended up getting not to brag, but a discount for it. And I know that's because I just said thank you, because I could tell by her demeanor she wasn't going to help you. But I was like, and I remember that even carrying the cart back, and I looked at the cart guy looking at me and I was like, he goes, well, I can take that for you. And I said, thank you, and he kind of looked at me like, wow, so so doing that for me has made, I feel like I get kind of like a little smiley friend, smiley that I wouldn't get back usually if I don't say anything. So
Exactly.
that's just, yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing. I was at Walmart last week and I was parked kind of far from the store, and I thought, oh God, I got to bring the carriage back because it's part of my service. And I was like, I really don't want to bring the carriage back today, but I'll do it anyways. So that's a great place because there's tons of carriages at Walmart, and people are always looking at me like, why would she bring her own carriage back? What the heck? It's not Aldi where you get your quarter. Go ahead, Rivers.
Hello, I want to just thank each and everyone that has been attending this meeting. I'm typically never on camera. I think I've only been on camera twice. It's typically usually like my dinner hour, have something right before, after, all that. But you guys have been of service to me. I'll get weepy. I glean from everyone's shares. Um, Sharing your experience, strength, and hope, sharing your struggles. And I want to thank each and every one of you for that and just all that I've learned. And for Lisa answering that call that was inside of you to do this right after, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
your dedication and, you know, learning what I have and what you've put into this, that what service. And so I so appreciate that. And that's all. I just want to say thank you to each of you. And
Thanks, River.
oh,
I,
one other thing, what you just
yeah.
shared about it doesn't have to be in the 12-step program. When I started another 12-step fellowship OA a couple of years ago, I got real scared and I felt, oh my God, if I don't become a sponsor right away after I finish the steps, I'm going to get back in the food. I mean, it just depended on whatever meeting I was going to, and I'd hear that. And then, I had heard it from Herb and hearing it again from you that I wasn't feel called to do that. But um to really see where I am providing that 12-step service in different areas of my life, even to my, I want to say even to like learn how to do that to myself and then in the community and all, all that. So thank you. And I'll pass.
Thanks, Rivers. It is a progression that you go through, I think, in the program where, in the older meetings where it was in a physical place, you'd help put away the chairs or you'd fold up the tables or put away the literature, it would be stuff like that. So there was sometimes a little more opportunity within the 12 steps, but people didn't realize it can be outside of the 12 steps because we're not here to solely help 12-step people. We're here to contribute to humanity as a whole. 12-step people are just a percentage or a piece of that pie. It's about the whole pie. We want this to touch all people because all people suffer from unmanageability. They might not all have addiction problems, but everyone on the planet has unmanageability. So if you have to go outside of your 12-step circle, that is 100% okay and it's great. And like Rivers or Rochelle said, you gotta have the desire to do the service that you're going to do. If you're doing it begrudgingly or it's not really something you want or somebody tells you you should do it, like become a sponsor, and you go ahead and do it and you're not 100% sure that's what you want to do, it's not going to work. Your heart has to be in it. It has to come from your heart, not from, okay, this makes sense. I should go this. I should do this thing. No, no, no. Do what you love and share that love with the person that needs it. If it's just the little Walmart guy pushing that thing that brings all the carriages in, that's okay. It's still service. Go ahead, Sarah.
I just want to echo what some of the others have said um, about how much I have learned from everyone's shares. And regarding the 12 steps and the service, in the beginning, it made me very nervous because I was hesitant. I do have sponsees, just a few that I've had for quite a while. But I've learned that I do my, I get my most satisfaction, I think, out of listening. Just being an observer, and people sometimes need to just vent, or they review something with me, and if I just listen and don't make a comment by their talking over whatever it is that's upsetting them, they end up coming to some kind of conclusion themselves. And I think, gee whiz, I didn't really do anything. And then sometimes I'll say, thank you. I haven't done anything. I just listened. But there are ways where I can get some satisfaction out of it. Just simple things like you say, returning the service cart at the grocery store, um, listening to somebody that really has just a problem that they need to vent out, and um, and I've just learned through all of that through people's shares in the fellowships, the 12-step fellowships that I belong to. And I just want to say thank you to you, Lisa, too, for you've really done a yeomanship job in your presentations, and I'm glad that I have them on my file and I can go back and listen to them. So I do appreciate your efforts as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And it, it- listening to somebody, as you were saying, Sarah, it's a commodity now, like I was saying. If you enjoy listening instead of talking, and people come into your life that just want you to listen to them, that's a huge service that you can give to somebody.
Mhm.
I'm that person that wherever I go, people come up to me to ask for help. It drives my husband nuts. He's always like, why do they always ask you? Why do they pick you? Why is it always you? And I'm like, I don't know, but I enjoy it. I think he's a little jealous, actually, but I don't mind helping somebody. I remember I was in an airport once many years ago, and somebody came up to me and they didn't speak English and they needed to make a phone call. in a phone booth and they didn't know how to dial, and I didn't know how to speak their language. I had I mean, no idea, but I could kind of get a feeling what they needed. And I walked over to the payphone with them and I took some quarters out of my bag and I put them in the payphone, and they had a phone number with numbers on it, and I dialed it and I handed them the phone. And you would have thought I was the second coming for dialing a phone. And that happened probably 30 years ago, and I still remember it vividly. And what I also remember is if I was ever in an airport and I could not figure out how to dial a phone, I would be so grateful and so ecstatic that somebody would walk up unassumingly and just help me do that. And I would always believe that in life, you get what you give. And I don't mean it in some metaphysical karmic way. I just mean whatever you put out is going to come back. So I always have tried to lean towards the positive things in life, such as helping people. Even before it was a 12-step thing with me, I just was always a helpful person. And I can't deny that part of what motivates me to help people is it's a great feeling inside. It's a feeling of connection to the rest of the human race when otherwise there doesn't seem to be one. I mean, we could pass 150 people in the grocery store, and then one person gets behind us in the line and they need assistance, and everything changes. So be on the lookout for those moments where you can actually be service people in the most obscure places you would never even realize. And when you start doing that, it starts coming to you. People just start gravitating to you. There's something that starts to show up on your face when you become a person who wants to help people everywhere, and they know who you are. So it's a fantastic service to give because of what you also receive. It is it's such a circle, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. It's wonderful. Go ahead, Rochelle. You're muted.
I think for me, the only thing I have to be really careful about is not going into codependency.
Right.
So I was raised by the personification of a Jewish mother from New York City. I turned into that person. So it's not just let me help you, but I know what you need. And what I've learned in Coda is to ask. And one of my friends in program, I'll say to her, how about I bring over, you're not feeling well. And she always says to me, I know where you live and I know your phone number. And that has helped me a lot in not presuming to help somebody. And so just saying, what can I do for you? What do you need? And let that, and even if I have this brilliant idea of what this person needs to make their life better, I've learned to, at least I try to keep my mouth shut. I'm not always good at it. But I think for codependence, this step can be difficult because it can lead to becoming the fixer. And I can't afford to do that because that's one of my diseases. So
A really good point, Rochelle. That thin line between enabling and helping, it's a really gray area, especially for codependents, myself included. And I did spend a lot of years people pleasing, and there's such a difference because when you're people pleasing, you're not feeling good about what you do. It's a really good indicator. And that is definitely an addictive pattern that I fell into, and it cost me a lot of sanity in my life. So you do have to stop and ask yourself, okay, is my intention to help? Is my intention to show them what they should do? Is my intention, all these different directives that we can have because of who we are. But as you said, as you progress in your recovery and you learn more about yourself and your codependency, the more able you'll be to help people without that chain of codependency dragging you into it.
I have a question. This is unrelated, except people. Do you in Massachusetts call the supermarket basket that we call, do you call it a like a carriage?
Shopping carriage, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. So the other thing that was kind of related, it's not totally to the 12 step, but I think it's linked to the stuff we were doing, is that it was interesting that I I kind of like thankfully we have 3 more weeks, so I'll see how everything proceeds. But I had thought like things were gonna go a little bit different over the course of the session, but I've had more breakthroughs, and you know, as I stated previously, like I'm you know I'm currently unemployed, which I hadn't expected. But one of the interesting things the last 4 days is that I've really seen how my one of my defects of character blocks my earning. Because like one of the things I do is I've written like a certain amount of books, and I just realized that I don't sell them because they aren't perfect. And it's just been so weird, like the last 4 days, because I've been going for these materials about marketing, like books and how to do it and this and that. And I was just spending 4 days realizing that the stuff that I have isn't perfect enough, and just seeing how insane that is. And that I don't just do that with books. Like I can see it with books, but I'm sure I do that with other things in business which have limited my income for, unfortunately, you know, I'm not a spring chicken like an extended period of time. But seeing it, but catching it the last 4 days has been really very powerful. Like just kind of waking up and like seeing like in Technicolor, like literally like the people like when they went from black and white to here's the Technicolor TV, like seeing it like that and being like, oh my God, it's really not fun. Like, but like in a new way of just like seeing the defect happening and like affecting my life in a negative way. So I don't know if that's helpful to other people, but that's definitely something like brand new to that extent, to just like, wow, like I don't really want that. Like, okay, let me pray, God, please remove it. What actions can I take? So yeah.
That's a spiritual enlightenment at the very least. It could be a complete awakening at some point. So that's fantastic, Mark.
Thank you.
And you have to tell me, what is it you thought was going to be different?
Oh, I don't know. Like a friend, my friend who told me to do the course. She was like, you know, like you're probably gonna get a really good gig, and you know, like all this wonderful stuff's gonna happen, and everything's gonna be night and day. And she just kept saying that, yeah, you get the biggest job of your life, and everything in your business will work out. You know, stuff like that. She just kept saying stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's just a year of my life, or yeah.
Was this like a fortune teller, Mark?
Yeah. No. This is a friend of mine. She just started the course with her, but
Oh,
yeah, but she was trying to get me to do it, and she because she knew somebody that did the course. I don't know, was somebody, and they really got you know, they ended up like with everything changed, like they were, you know, like money wise, you know, like, and they were working on the same thing that I'm working on. And so yeah. So yeah, that's what I meant when I had expected that, because like yeah, I've been I'm not going to say I was sold a bill of goods, but yeah,
not
yes.
by me. I do not offer any guarantees, but I will tell everyone this because this raises a good point that Mark brought up. If there was something that didn't come up in the workshop that you'd like to have some information on, I would love an email and we can go over it or discuss it and put some, information into it and have that, see how that works out. Because obviously everything that I'm presenting to you is my perspective from somebody else's perspective, from their perspective. This goes all the way back basically to Bill W. It's like that Kevin Bacon thing, 6 degrees of, I probably have touched Bill W. somehow. But there are so many things that I probably missed or didn't touch on or might not even be aware of. And I always love to be informed. So if there's something that didn't get addressed, definitely let me know. And if I can't fit it in this time, the next workshop, absolutely. Because although the next workshop will still be the same workshop in a sense, I have evolved and grown from all of you. So that perspective will be the next workshop. I don't do it so remotely that it will just be, I'm going to recite the same thing over again. That's not how I want to do it. And I've learned a lot through all of you with your experiences and how it affected me. So the next workshop, we will obviously cover, the groundwork that has to be covered, but it will be from a different perspective because I'm not the same person that started this workshop, and none of you are the same people either. Even though Mark didn't get to become, you know, Jeff Bezos overnight like he thought he would in the workshop, I can still hopefully get you a little closer. So if you have an idea or you've just been like, I've been in the program forever and nobody ever talks about such and such, bring it up. I'd love to add it. Anything new, anything that's missing. Um, because collectively, everyone that shows up in this Zoom room is bringing a lot of experience with them. And we can all benefit from that. That's that service thing. So, definitely write stuff down or shoot me an email or a text or whatever you have to. And I would love to go over it. Or if you have somebody, that you've studied outside of the realm of the 12 steps that we can add as an enhancement, not necessarily to take over it, of course, because I want to stay on track. But there's so many ways of getting Bill W.'s message across. It doesn't just come across in the 12 steps. It comes across in a lot of people. I know I've spoken about Wayne Dyer, who himself was an alcoholic and did tremendous work. Some of his older stuff when he got older, like around before he died, wasn't as good as his beginning stuff because he got so big and his ego got out of control and he lost his way a little bit, but his messages are fantastic. So, if there's somebody that you guys have studied or you've used in your own lives, I'd love to hear about it because they're all saying the same thing. We need to get to that place where we're connected to this powerhouse of opportunity. That's what's missing in people's lives. Go ahead, Rochelle.
I was thinking too, as we do this, and I was thinking about Mark and what he was saying and people I know in my own circle. The world is changing. And, we didn't have AI when I mean, not even a year ago. I mean, we did, but it wasn't like summarizing my emails to people. And, when I talk to people like in companies, I'm thinking I'm probably not talking to a human. I'm probably talking to some robot thing. And the world has changed. And yet these core principles for us don't change. But I'm thinking, Mark, just even my son is in this situation of looking for another job, and the world is looking for a job or whatever. It's a different process now. It doesn't value the kind, cooperative, whatever people brought to the table beforehand. It's so different now. And staying with our core principles and being honest and being truthful and being of service to other people, it's hard in this world, I think. I mean, that's just my take, and I'm not going to get into politics or anything, but it's just a different environment now.
Yep.
Just different and hard for a lot of people.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, can you imagine if Bill W. walked into a meeting in this day and age? He'd be like, what are these people talking about? You know? What do you mean there's people in here that aren't alcoholics and there's drug addicts and there's sex things and all this stuff that didn't even exist. There's hundreds of more addictions now than there were even 25 years ago. Hundreds. So the world is moving fast and we have to move pretty fast to keep up with it.
Mhm.
But I got to be honest though, Lisa, that Bill qualified for most of the fellowships. No offense, but yeah.
I totally agree. And I think if we were to tell him that, being the egomaniac he was, I don't think that would go over very well. But yeah, he had a lot. He had a lot. And Mark, I've thought about it because I've wondered if Bill understood more about his own addictions, plural, he might not have struggled quite as much. It took him, I think it was 10 years after he wrote the big book, he was still having relapses. So I think, with the knowledge that we have today and the gift that he had almost 100 years ago, I can't even imagine. And nobody's really come along that has been as powerful as Bill W. There's really been nobody else. There's been no big authorities on it. They just, I don't know. It's like, it's not a big deal, but it is. It's a huge deal. It's basically why society is the mess that it is the unmanageability is completely off the
It's
charts.
Run riot.
Yep. Gone awry. Everybody's gone awry. And I wonder how, I just can't imagine how he'd do today. He'd probably need a drink just to cope because it's a lot. But anyways, get me your ideas, or if you have suggestions or anything you wanna. I'm very open. I don't even mind if it's critical. I don't mind criticism. I actually learned from criticism. So if there's anything anybody wants to let me know, that's for the benefit of everybody. I want it to be the best it can be and give the information that's the best for everybody. So don't hesitate to reach out and let me know.
Okay.
All righty. Does anyone have any more?
No, I'm exhausted. I'm gonna head out a little early.
We're gonna head out now too,
Yeah.
I think.
Good
Let's
night,
do
everybody.
let's do a quick serenity prayer.
Yeah.
God,
God,
grant me the
This
serenity
And
serenity
Miss Rennie,
to
to
accept
accept
the
To
things
accept
accept
things I
things
cannot
I
I cannot
cannot
change,
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 courage to
courage
change
to
courage
change
to
the
change
things
the
I
things
things
can,
I
I can,
can,
and the wisdom
and
to
the
wisdom to
wisdom
know
to
the
know the
difference.
difference.
I will not mind be
Will be
done.
done. Thank you.
thank you,
Bye
Good night,
bye.
everyone.
everybody.
Bye
Have a
bye.
fantastic
Free.
week. I'll see you all next week.
Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Yeah.